So how much peaking should you do? It's going to vary pretty widely based on gender, strength, experience, and size of the lifter. So on one side, if we have a 22-year-old female who's been training for a year and is squatting 100 kilos in the 60 kilo class, if they've been training for a year maybe, they're gonna not need a very long peak and taper at all. They could probably do about as short as maybe like 10 or 12 days worth of peaking type of training, and then have like a 3-day taper into that. So, they might do an 11-day peak and a 3-day taper. So they have a 2-week peaking block with that, where someone on the other side, like a giant headed 6'1", 360 pound, fuscular, that's fat and muscular at the same time, gentleman, who's been lifting for 15 to 20 years and is in his early 30s and squatting in the 900s, he's probably going to need a much longer peak and taper, probably, up to like 6 weeks of peaking training with up to a 2-week long taper. And that's going to happen because, as I mentioned, those highest level efforts, that when the weights are that heavy and that close to like your ultimate potential or the potential of anyone's ability to lift, they're going to have to be spread out pretty far. You're not going to squat heavy on Monday and squat heavy again on Friday and Monday and Friday. And so it takes time as you transition to create a smooth transition from hypertrophy to strength to peaking. It's going to take time to build up from those strength block weights to those top peaking weights that you need. So you might only be squatting heavy of those 6 weeks of training like every other week, and deadlifting heavy every other week on the opposite schedule, benching heavy a little bit more frequently. And then as you finish that peaking training, because the nervous system takes the longest to recover, compared to muscles, joints, and tendons, to decay that neural fatigue, that's why a long taper is going to be needed, because those super heavy weights generated so much more neural fatigue, because the longer you've been lifting and the better at it you are, the better at getting your nervous system to fire as many muscles as possible. As you're more efficient in that, it's just like a bigger stimulus. So it's going to take longer to recover from. So on the short side, we're probably doing 11 days of peaking style training with a 3-day taper for a 2-week peaking block. And on the long side, getting out all the way out to 8 weeks with probably 6 weeks of hard peaking training and then into a 2-week taper.